I'm no good at taking good advice, and I'm self-careless, so don't tell me twice that lately I've been so stuck in my head that I forget just about everything my therapist said. Maybe I'm self-helpless. Maybe I'm self-helpless. Maybe I'm self-helpless. Maybe we are all self-helpless.
Hey everyone, welcome to Self-Helpless. I'm Delaney Fisher, and today's guest has one of the coolest jobs that you've ever heard of. I am chatting with Karla Nikole, who is a writer and the creator of the series Lore and Lust, and she writes queer vampire romances that have a focus on consent and diversity. I mean, is there a more unique niche that you've heard of? Anyone? Bueller? Okay, so we talk about the steps that Karla took to build this career for herself from scratch and the lifestyle changes that went along with her pursuing this. She basically got rid of everything and travels the world. So we get into a lot in this episode. I mean, everything from her very first step that she took to write her first book to tips for self-publishing, her books getting into Barnes and Noble because of TikTok, but she doesn't have a TikTok account. Very cool story behind that. The natural ebbs and flows in a business and career not being for everyone and handling criticism related to your work, the messiness of business and career transitions, and the comparison trap among entrepreneurs, just so much stuff. But what I really love about this conversation in particular is that Karla shares about her choice to live a nomadic lifestyle and how she decided to, instead of trying to make more and more money, she actually just reduced her overhead and expenses drastically in order to have the day to day that she wants. And a big theme in this conversation that you will notice Karla mentions is deprogramming from societal expectations. I just love this and resonate with this so much because what I have found in the entrepreneurial space, especially, but really in corporate circles too, is that we are bombarded with this message that in order to improve your lifestyle or to have more success or more of the things that you want, more freedom, it means make more money, make more money, make more money, which often means we have to take on more work or take on a heftier title at our job with longer hours or have more responsibility or stress in some way. Look, I'm not saying this is the case for everybody, but a lot of the time that is the exchange for more money. But the other side of this is not discussed as much, which is, or you can live very simply and enjoy the freedom now that you are trying to get through making more and more money. You can just make up that difference by removing a ton of expenses from your life. For example, I had a client who works in the medical field and she had $1 million business, but she personally brought home around $100,000 a year for herself. So she had about $900,000 in expenses to run this thing. And her business was very stressful. I mean, 24/7 around the clock to keep it going. And she did admit that, it did feel good and cool sometimes to be able to say that she runs a seven-figure business. I mean, that really is an amazing feat, especially as a woman. But she herself did not feel wealthy. She did not have the freedom that she thought being an entrepreneur would give her. So we just talked about her options, and we came up with a plan to replace her six-figure salary in a different way. So instead of running $1 million business with a big team and tons of clients and lots of stress, what about just flipping that on its head, right? You have a small team with a small amount of clients. It's a different offer in the same space, but way less stress and more free time. And you make the same amount of money. So yes, it's true that you won't be able to say that you have $1 million business anymore. That shiny object does go away. And you probably won't be invited to some of those $1 million, panels to be a speaker and stuff anymore. But you'll have a six-figure business and you'll be invited to speak on different panels, like panels about getting your fucking life back. Doesn't that sound nice? And most importantly, you will have the freedom that you're looking for without sacrificing the salary that you have, that you're already used to, In fact, you'll probably make more money because you won't be working from this place of burnout. You will in turn be more creative and more available for other opportunities. So that's what she did. She tweaked her business model. And instead of pushing and pushing for more clients and a bigger team and a bigger space and all these things that she thought was expected of her, it was just a shift, right? It starts as a mindset shift and then it's followed up by the actions to back it up. So, not only is Karla's story really inspiring for all the creatives and writers and entrepreneurs tuning in, but also for anyone who has been considering making some lifestyle changes and shifts in their personal life. So, here is Karla Nikole. Karla, thank you so much for being here. I am so freaking excited to talk with you about what you do.
Thank you so much for having me. I am honored, truly.
Oh my gosh. So, can you give us all a snapshot of the work that you currently do?
Sure. The work that I do is escapism, joy. I am a writer and I write queer vampire romances, and they're not your traditional romances. They are, well, traditional vampire romance. It's not bloody and gory. It's very soft. It's very sweet and consenting, and the characters actually communicate with each other. It's a bit weird, but people are into it.
Seriously, that is truly one of the coolest jobs I've ever heard of, ever in the history of podcasting with anybody. How in the world did this come to fruition for you?
So I was getting out of debt and I was very bored at home because I wasn't spending any money. I wasn't going out and doing things. And I started just writing this vampire kind of story in my head. It was October. It literally was like a dark and stormy night. And I was just in the mood to write some kind of vampire romancy fiction. And I wrote it as a bit of a joke and said, hey, to some of my closest friends, read this. It's really funny. Like
Yeah.
you'll enjoy it. And they read it and they came back to me and said, but you should publish this. And I thought,
Wow.
what? Like, no way. Like, this is just me being silly. Like, come on. They're like, no, but seriously, you should publish this. And I wrestled with it. I mean, and we can get into that later, but I wrestled
Yeah.
like, why should I publish it? There's enough vampire stories. Nobody needs another vampire story from me. But I pursued it seriously. Like I took it seriously and I looked up and researched and did all the steps. And eventually I got it out. And yeah, it was well received. People like it. They really lovely messages from people all the time, just saying that like the characters comfort them and it's just like an escape that they need, and it's great because that's what it was for me. So it's like I just kind of
Yeah.
passed it along to everybody else. Like, here, you guys enjoy and have some escapism too.
Oh my gosh. I want to dissect this moment a little bit
Yeah.
before we get into the rest of your story because you kind of said, okay, this is kind of birthed out of boredom. You're at home, really not doing much,
Mm-hmm.
getting out of debt, that kind of stuff. And so
Mm-hmm.
many people out there wouldn't even allow themselves or give themselves permission to sit down and write the thing. So
Yeah.
what kind of was going through your head of like, gosh, I got to get this vampire story out of me? And what steps did you take to actually make that happen?
I have a background in writing. So I was like an actual corporate kind of like legally stiff writer for a long time. So writing itself comes fairly natural to me. And even when I was younger, I would write creatively for fun.
Mm.
So it didn't feel like such a stretch to allow myself to sit and write that way. I hadn't done it in a really long time, but yeah, I just felt inspired by it being October and Halloween, and I just was in a mood and it was raining and storming out. And I just decided to go for it because I was at home and I was bored and it's like I just needed a kind of source of entertainment. So the
Yeah.
foundation was kind of already there. Like the writing piece was in me and it's been in me for a long time. And yeah, just the mood hit and I just kind of went for it.
So good. And then the next part of the puzzle is you ended up sending it to some friends, right? For just
Hmm.
like, hey, enjoy this. I wrote it for fun.
Hmm.
And again, so many people would not share it with a soul, right? So what made that feel comfortable for you to say, I'm just going to share this with some buddies?
Sure. The friends that I had shared it with were people that I had that kind of relationship. Either they
Yeah.
had sent me things that I had read of theirs before, or we had that kind of common ground already. Because it started with two specific friends. And one of my friends, we had a really long history of like exchanging short stories, and we would do writing exercises together, like in the past. And the other friend, we had the common ground of like comic books and like, I don't know, like kind of nerdy, vampire type things. And I knew
Yeah.
that she would appreciate it. So it's like I only shared it with the two friends that I really felt would be receptive to it and would kind of think it was funny. But those two friends were the ones who told me, no, you should take this seriously.
Oh,
So yeah, again, like the
yes.
foundation was already there. But over time I did end up sharing it with more friends, and then like even my mom read it. So that was like a whole nother thing. But
Oh gosh, what you said is so important. The fact that you had those two friends to share it with,
mhm,
it really shows you how important it is to have people in your life that are going to
yes,
support your creative endeavors. And so many people don't have that naturally. They really have to build
yes,
that intentionally. And like
yes.
sometimes it just takes two friends, right? Like it's
Mhm.
not, you don't have to have 25,000 people rooting for you every
No.
step of the way. So I love that. That's a piece of your story. So, okay, what happened next? Your friend says you should publish this. What were some of the next steps?
The next step was the piece of like encouraging myself to take it seriously and to
Yeah.
really pursue it. That was the hardest part next, because I really just felt like I was being silly, and who needs more vampire stories? There are enough vampire stories, and really just kind of talking myself up and letting myself try,
Yeah.
and not talking down to myself, like really just kind of giving myself the courage. And like you said earlier, like giving myself that space to try within the privacy of my friends and in my own space. It was like, oh, no big deal. Let's just do this. It'll be fun. But then the thought of like having other people, like seriously pursuing this and having other people read it it was just like a whole nother level that I had to overcome.
Yes. Can you share some of the things that you told yourself to get in the mindset of making that feel a little bit more comfortable for you so you could take those next steps?
Really, it was just to try and having that encouragement, having consistent and steady encouragement from those friends, and researching, like researching and seeing how other people took these steps, how other indie authors took these steps to put their stories out, considering different pathways. Like I considered, Wattpad, or like, what if I did my own website and just let people read it for free or something there? Just different levels of, well, how, if I'm going to do this, how do I present it to the world?
Yes.
Um, yeah, but in the end, really, it was having those two people encourage me, and then having other friends, like letting another friend read it and them also saying, no, this is good, you should publish this, and me kind of, receiving that. Like I would receive their encouragement, and it kind of boosted me up, like building blocks,
Yeah.
basically.
There's so many writers and aspiring writers in this space. So
Hmm.
how did you bring your idea to fruition? How did you get the thing published, and how do you market it and all that? Anything that you're willing to share about that process, what that's been like for you?
Yeah, a lot of research. I did a lot of research. I joined some writing groups where other indie authors were a part of it, and they talked about their process and, what are the best things to do? What are the different options? I never wanted to query. So querying your book to like a traditional publisher.
Yeah.
For some reason, well, let's back up, because I also always wanted to have my own business. I didn't know what it would look like or what it would end up being, but I always wanted to have my own situation that I could kind of control creatively, because I had worked for corporate companies and I would have ideas and things I wanted to do, and you would always be hindered because they would say like, no, that's not a good idea, or we don't like that, that's too bright, that's too colorful. And this book project was me being able to have full control and express what I wanted as far as the story, what I wanted with the characters, their backgrounds, the artwork, everything. So I really wanted to let it be like a passion project and just put it out the way that I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
um, And so, yeah, I researched like how to do this as an indie author and join groups and YouTube videos and podcasts. There was a really great podcast called Create If, and she would literally go through the steps of like how much you should expect to pay for a cover and what kind of editor you can get, how to get beta readers, like different. So really, there was like a long process, but probably like a year or so of me just taking in all kinds of information and
Yeah.
making those choices. And yeah, once I felt well equipped with information, then I kind of just was like, okay, I can do this. I'll hire this person, and this is how we'll do it.
I love the fact that this for you was kind of taking back your control, like creative
Yes,
control.
very
And
much.
it worked. It
It
worked.
worked. It
And it's
did.
out there and people are loving it. I think that is another great lesson that we can extract from your story too is that yeah, you can go the traditional publishing route. You can go
Hmm.
the traditional path with anything, but it's not the only way to get the thing
It's
that you
not the
want.
only way. Nope.
Yes. And so I think I saw some pictures of your books being in Barnes and Noble and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So what happened was so you get your book published or you go the self-publishing route. How do you
Mhm.
get your book in these stores?
That is a mystery. I really think though that it has to do with readers. So I'm not on TikTok because I can't handle TikTok, but
Me neither.
yeah. Um, I believe that there were people on TikTok who were promoting the book, and there are booksellers who follow the trends. And maybe
Wow.
at some point, I don't think it went viral or anything that serious, but I think that at some point there was a trend of my book on TikTok. And so Barnes and Noble, and they just decided to put it into their stores.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What another brilliant part of this story is you don't
Mhm.
have to be on TikTok for TikTok to work for you,
Yes.
right?
Yes. You
Like
don't have to be on TikTok.
that is just such a huge reminder for everybody because people get so wrapped up with social media, gotta have
We
this
could
this
have a
and this,
long
and it's like,
conversation
oh,
about that.
I'm not
Mhm.
even on TikTok yet. Barnes and
Mhm.
Noble saw my shit and put it in their
Yeah,
store.
they did.
Oh,
Yes.
that's so cool. What kind of work were you doing before this? I'd imagine you didn't always do this specific thing.
No. I wasn't always writing soft queer vampire romance.
Right. Although that'd be incredible. You at 5 years
Right.
old typing away.
So right
Okay.
out of college, I did corporate public relations, like media relations, press release writing, like very stiff kind of work. Then I decided I hate this, and I moved to Japan, and I taught
Oh my
English in
gosh.
Japan for 2 years. Then
Wow.
I did a stint in Korea for a year. I did a stint in Prague, taught English there too, and came back to America and I went back into business. I was doing like marketing, PR for a small company. And while I was doing that, that's when I was getting out of debt.
Okay.
So like the writing piece was kind of there. Like I was doing writing in different ways, not creatively, but for the marketing job, for the education jobs.
So it seems like you travel a lot or are able to travel a lot. How are you doing that while managing also making money and paying your bills and all that stuff? What does that lifestyle look like for you?
So for me, this lifestyle, it works because I don't have bills.
Yeah. Yes. How did you get that?
This situation really boils down to me getting out of debt. So in between the years of 2017 and 2019, it took me about 2.5 years. I paid off my student loan debt, credit card debt, got rid of my car lease. Um, so all that stuff was gone. And then I was able to publish the book. So extra money that I had coming in from my job, I was able to put toward the books and really like put the money into the marketing and foster all that. And once the books were out, I didn't make a lot of money like early on. I'm not making a lot of money right now, but
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 enough
the
to
key
sustain yourself, which is awesome.
exactly.
Yeah.
But the key is I don't have those bills. So, and then last year, I decided to get rid of my apartment. No, in 2021. In 2021, I got rid of my apartment. I had stuff in storage for a little while. Then I came back and got rid of all my stuff in storage. So it's really just like I'm a free agent kind of
Wow.
nomad.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So I'm able to just, I mean, it's like a choice, right? Like if
Yeah.
I don't have a house and a car and all those things.
Yeah.
But I can go wherever I want. So whatever
Yeah.
money comes in, I can use it to, if I want to go spend 3 months in France, I can rent an apartment in France for, $700 a month for three
Right.
months. I don't need a car in France. I can, depending on the city, I can take the train. Um, so it just works out. I got to this point where I said, okay, you can pay $1,500 a month for an apartment in, Phoenix, Arizona,
Right.
where you're close to your parents, and you have to have a car, you have to pay gas, you have to have license and registration, all these things. Or you can get rid of all these things and take that $1,500 a month and go somewhere else.
Yes.
So it's a
Oh my
choice.
gosh, it's so freaking cool. It seems like it seems like you kind of flow into the next thing for yourself. Obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've had kind of an unconventional path where you just kind of follow your next thing.
Yeah,
Where do you think that comes from? Because that's not what we're really conditioned to do in our society. Where does
yes.
that driving force come from for you?
I think that it's something that's in me, and it's something that's always happening, because I really feel like this experience of me publishing these books and sinking into this lifestyle is me deprogramming myself in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, we're taught that we're supposed to, it's success when you have that stability. It's success when you have that house, when you have those two cars, when you have that lifestyle.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm a bit contrary anyway. Just naturally, I'm a bit contrary. I challenge what success means for me. Like, I understand
Yeah.
society's expectation of success, but for me it's like, well, I had stability, I had an apartment and a car and a 9 to 5 job, and I was miserable.
Yeah.
I mean, so much anxiety, so much stress. I was supposed to be at work at 7 in the morning. I would get out of bed at 6:45.
Been there.
I didn't want to go. I didn't want
Yeah.
to be there. So for
Yeah.
me, it's been redefining, okay, well, what is success for me? Success for me, first of all, was to be free. I didn't want to have to work a 9 to 5 job anymore. I just felt like it was stifling. And then the next piece was, okay, letting go of the concepts in our thinking around money. Like, oh, I have to have this much money, or this, I have to have this thing, right?
Yeah.
I just, yeah, it's a work in progress, and I have come a really long way. The first year, I was like stressed, and if my sales dropped, I'd be like rolling around on the floor and crying. Now it's like I look at it and I'm like, things go up and down. Like, things come and go, and just being flexible. Yeah, it's a better lifestyle for me. This is my choice. Like, I would choose this, and maybe only make $1,000 in a month versus
Right.
having, $8,000 a month, but I'm stuck somewhere and I hate.
Right. It's so important to define what success means to all
Hmm.
of us
Yes.
individually. And we're never asked to do that in our
Mhm.
schooling. How do you keep yourself in maybe a positive mindset or growth mindset, whatever you want to call it, during those months of maybe lower revenue numbers and all of that stuff, especially as someone who might not know exactly what they're going to be doing in 5, 10 years? How do you
Mhm.
keep yourself grounded?
I First of all, have you ever heard of Eckhart Tolle?
Oh, yeah. A new earth, power now. Yes.
Yes, A New Earth Changed My Life.
It is really good.
Such an amazing book. So
Yes.
that book grounded me a lot, because a lot of the things that he says in that book made sense to me. It just resonated with me very deeply. Like I said before, things kind of ebb and flow. And when I look back at the past, like when I look at history, I always have exactly what I need, basically. Like, I try to be someone who listens intuitively to my gut. Like, I think listening to your gut is so important. We as women, people like to say, "Oh, you're just being emotional, or you're just being paranoid." It's like, no, listen to that voice. Like, listen to what your gut is saying, because it's important.
Yes.
And I listen to that instinct, but I also look back at the past, and it's like, I'm always all right. Like, even there's been so many occasions when I've had a meltdown about something, and it ended up being perfectly fine. Like, I was okay.
Right.
Like,
Right.
you get past it, you move on, it's fine. And so I draw back on those experiences and remember that, but also remembering to be present, like to value what you have right now. Like, even if the sales are like, oh, you only made $800 this month. Well, I'm fine. I have food in the refrigerator. I'm in a safe place. I can go
Yeah.
for a walk outside. It's okay. Like, you're not like, it's fine. You'll deal with that when it comes. And like, maybe
Yeah.
something else will come. We don't know. So
Yeah.
it's just a matter of like staying present, but also remembering, like, I was stressed out about this exact same thing a few months ago, and I'm fine. Like, everything turned out fine.
That's so important, is like looking back and remembering, oh yeah, I always forget when I'm in the thick of it, but things are going to
Mhm.
work out. It's hard to remind
I think
yourself,
we do.
remember. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, has there been any kind of periods of time where you have felt like giving up this lifestyle and be like, oh gosh, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I might have to get a job I hate again at some point. Any spirals
Yeah.
like that?
And that's when those low months, it's funny because actually, like, the months are like lower now than they were when I was freaking out about it.
Yeah.
But I
Wow.
think for
Wow.
me, I don't want to work a 9 to 5 anymore. Like, I don't want to have to do that again.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, when those situations come, it's like, well, you have to prepare, right? So then you have to save. Like, I scale back my lifestyle and I will save money so that when those low months do come, you have the money to be able to recover, and then you can adjust. It's like you tinker and you adjust. That's what this whole process is. It's like you try something, if it doesn't work, okay, well, let's try this thing, and then maybe that thing will work. Like, I'm always tinkering and adjusting and, like, trying to make it just right. There's no like
Yes.
one, yep, I did this one thing and it worked. It's like, I've done all kinds of things and made all kinds of
Yeah.
adjustments.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when you left your kind of day job situation to
Mhm.
pursue this lifestyle, what kind of reactions did you get from people who knew you when you were in more of the corporate world? Were people supportive? Were they confused? Did they treat you like you were out of your mind? What
I
kind of stuff did you get?
I am very fortunate because the overwhelming majority of people in my life have been very supportive. I think they just
That's
know
great.
me and that I'm a
Yeah.
bit of a free spirit and I'm a bit contrary. I
Yeah.
mean, when you quit your corporate job, your promising corporate job, and move to the countryside of Japan, people are like, okay, we've got a different bird on our hands here.
Right. I
But
totally get that.
I have been very supported by the people in my life. There was one person that looked at me and kind of was like, "What are you doing? Like, this is irresponsible." And truly, I no longer talk to that person. Like, that person is no longer in my life because when everybody else was very supportive and encouraging of me and that one person wasn't, it just made it glaringly obvious that, like, okay, maybe it's time to lay this friendship to rest. Like, maybe this person is not going to be a part of this new path that I'm taking, and that's okay.
Right. Right.
Boundaries.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, you don't have to please everyone. You're the one who
Mhm.
has to live with yourself all day, every day. Hope you're making yourself happy. Who's with you at
Exactly.
all times. What has your experience been birthing something into the world, like your books,
Mhm.
and the vulnerability aspect of that, knowing people are reading them and have all different kinds of opinions, maybe a lot of positive stuff, maybe some criticisms. Like, what is that like when you care about a project so much for you?
Yes, that is another growth experience and process. So
Yeah.
when the first book came out, I will always remember when I got my first bad review, and it was a doozy.
Oh
I
gosh.
mean, this person like wrote a 10 paragraph dissertation about all the things that were wrong with my book.
Oh my gosh. Why, like, where do people find the time to do this shit? It's so weird.
But like, I laugh about it now, but at the time I was devastated. Oh
Yeah.
my God. It's like, I
Yeah.
was so upset and I was embarrassed. And I don't know, as time goes on, I realize, different strokes for different folks, right? Lots of cliche
Right.
phrases, and you can't please everybody. And I am very intentionally writing things that I love because the reason I have gone on this path is because I want my own business and I wanted to do things my way. So when you get reviews where people are like, "Oh, there's too much romance in this romance," or "I don't like that," which I have guys reviews like that. Or I wish that there was more politics in this book because I like vampire politics. It's like, okay, well, you should go and find that book. I'm sure that that book exists,
Right.
or you should write it. You know, like, no, I'm not
Right.
angry at you. It's totally fine. You tried it. Our taste didn't match up.
Yeah.
That's cool. Good luck to you. I'm going to keep doing what I want to do because I can, right?
Yes,
So
exactly,
now
exactly.
I actually stopped. I used to let people tag me on Instagram in reviews and I would repost it, you know, if they, because like overwhelmingly people will say something nice and they're like gushing about it or like
Yes.
something like that. But occasionally, like I get somebody that's like 3 stars. This book was all right, and they tag me. I'm like, who are you? Where did you come from? Who raised you?
Right.
Like I
Like,
would never.
they want you to see their 3-star review. What is that?
You don't know me. Like I don't. You could have been. Who knows what you're going through? You know, it's so subjective.
Yeah.
Maybe you are like have just had a breakup, or you're like sick, or you're in a bad mood, and you pick up this book, and it's not what you personally were expecting in your brain, and it's like
Yeah.
you come at me like this should have been like this. Like, okay, well, let me promptly go and rewrite it. What am I supposed to do?
Right.
Now it's funny to me. Now it's just like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Do you feel just like desensitized to it now because
I'm a
you've
bit
been doing this a
desensitized too.
while?
And again, like you need people to support you and to kind of give you that validation because I will tell you honestly that a big turning point was once the book started magically showing up in Barnes and Noble, I was like, oh wow, that's incredible.
Yes.
So people, you know, telling me, oh, there's too much romance in this romance. I'm like, but the book is in Barnes and Noble. So
Right. Barnes and Noble doesn't give a shit, so that's all
I
that
don't
matters.
think so.
Yes. So a lot of people always have questions about the logistics from like the day job transition to like doing your own thing kind of full time. Is there anything that helped you with the logistics of changing your lifestyles, whether it was like a health insurance thing or mapping things out differently budget wise or anything like that that you would be willing to share?
For me, it was really messy. I wanted it to be nice and clean. When you listen to podcasts or like, you know, watch YouTube videos like talking about becoming an entrepreneur and transitioning from your daytime job to like I read the books, you know, I like did I
Yeah.
want it to be neat and clean. Like you pull the boat up to the dock and then you step onto the boat and then no. Like that I was kind of thrown
Same.
into the ocean with like a piece of driftwood. And for a long time I was just like my arms were on the driftwood, like, okay, we're out.
Hope we don't get a big wave. Yes, exactly.
I'm praying I don't get a big wave. That's my story was messy. I got laid off immediately when COVID hit. So things were going
Oh,
well. I had a
wow.
roommate. Thankfully, I had a roommate. So I wasn't spending a lot on rent. Like my and I had already gotten out of debt, so my costs were pretty low. But yeah, I got laid off right when COVID started. And so I didn't have a job or anything that whole summer of 2020. And I just worked on the book. Like I just worked on the book and was getting it ready to go out because I had like the money to just keep going. So I was like, okay, we're just gonna keep going with it. Let's just try.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's you want it to be nice and tidy and you have this idea in your head for how it's gonna go, but it doesn't go that way. And you have to
Right.
again, you have to be flexible and just okay, I guess we'll keep going.
Oh my god. Yeah, I resonate with that so much. I'm like, none of my business transitions have been neat at all. It's always feeling
Yeah,
messy. I mean,
yeah.
there's some days or some weeks that feel like, wow, things are
Mhm.
pretty nice and tidy here, but that goes to shit pretty quickly internally. I mean, not that anybody
Exactly.
would know externally, but that's just the reality of doing your
It
own
is.
thing, you know? So I
It is.
appreciate you being super honest about that, about the
Mhm.
messiness of it all during the months of like maybe the book sales are a little bit lower or it's not covering everything. How do you supplement your income if you need to?
Sure. So I am again, I'm very fortunate where I have these kind of like refuge places. So I'm in a refuge state right now. I was, you know, like I was kind of flying high and things were really good. So I went to France and I was in France for 7 months. And then I went a little bit crazy and went to Switzerland and went to Italy.
Wow.
And then the book sales kind of dropped. So now I'm at my best friend's house and she
Okay.
lets me come back here intermittently. And also my parents too. My parents,
Yeah.
again, so grateful to have people in my life who are supportive.
Yeah.
But they say like, yeah, okay, if you need to come back here, like it's fine, you know. It's not a
Yeah.
long-term thing and they know that, but I just have
Right.
kind of refuge down periods where I come back. And in this way, like I'm not spending a lot of money right now. Like
Right,
my money
right.
is being put toward putting another book out soon. So
Ooh.
I am just staying put. And like I again, like I don't have bills. So, I help with utilities, but I'm not paying rent. I'm just able to kind of like stay here and take things
Yeah.
slowly while we're in this lower month space.
That's so nice that you have like some safe havens that you can go to for
Hmm.
a little respite and stuff. That's
Yeah.
really awesome. So, this new book coming out, is this part of your current series? Is it totally different? What is that process like when people already know you as an author? Is there any kind of extra pressure on the next book? Like what's that feeling like for you?
I don't feel a lot of pressure. I went through that with the second book. When I put out
Okay.
the first vampire book, I put a lot of like unneeded pressure on myself with the second book. And to this day, I can't read the second book because it just brings me back to that like mental space.
Mm,
But with this situation, it's in the same vampire world, but it's all different characters. So
okay.
again, like, I enjoy what I do. Like it comes from a place that it gives me joy. And like I sit and write for hours and I love it. Like I love this process. And that's enough. And when I put it
Yeah.
out, I'm grateful that other people are into it too. Like it's just like a huge bonus that other people love it too.
Yeah.
So yeah, and working in this new series, like I'm excited about it. Like I'm loving the characters. It's coming out of me quite a bit differently. It's a little bit of a more intricate story. It's got a little bit of like complexity to it. And I think people will like it. There will be, of course, inevitably, there will be people who read the three books and who will be like, "Oh, I don't like this one," because it's just how
Right.
it is.
Right. Of
Again,
course.
you can't please everybody, but
Right.
for me, like at baseline, if I'm doing something that I love, I feel like there will be people that it resonates with and it will translate to them because that's the energy that I'm
Exactly.
putting into it and putting out.
Exactly. I mean, I totally agree. It's like, yeah, people are going to have opinions one way or the other. Some people
Hmm.
are going to want your series to stay the same until the end of time. And some people
Yes.
are going to want it to feel different at some point, and you just
Mhm.
can't please everybody. And so
Can't please everybody,
all
so you
you
might as
can
well please yourself.
exactly. That's all you can do is control how you feel while you're doing your thing. So I know people are
Mhm.
going to have this question. Okay, so your first book gets into Barnes and Noble and all that stuff. Are you going to be going straight to Barnes and Noble now that they know who you are, or is
I
that
doubt it.
like a totally different process? Each book is kind of its own marketing piece and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I have no idea. I have no expectations for
Yeah.
putting this book out. I mean, I really try not to do that to myself
Yeah.
because I did do that to myself. Short story, I when I was in the process of publishing these books, I met another author. And in some ways I think it was a blessing because she showed me that it was possible to live off of books once you've published them by yourself.
Yeah.
And which I didn't know was possible. Like I didn't know if I was chasing a pipe dream, but she came into my life and showed me that. But the downside is she was making something like $10,000 to $15,000 a month on her books.
Wow.
And so for me, for a long time, she was a point of comparison. And I didn't feel I was like driving myself crazy because I could not make that. I have never made that much money off of my books a month. Okay. Like
Sure.
she would show me. We had to kind of sever our relationship because I would ask her questions and she would just show me her sales sheet. Like, look, I made $18,000 this month. I'm like, okay, like that's great, but can you answer my question?
Right.
So it's like I was putting pressure on myself. Like, why can't I make as much? Why am I not doing as well as her? Why, you know? And
Yeah.
it was a toxic thing in my mind. And it was downplaying the success that I had, the achievements that my books were doing. So yeah, I try not to think about like, oh, I hope that this book does this when I put it out, or oh, I hope that this publisher like viral. Like I don't even
Yeah.
I don't I just am like I hope people enjoy it. Like I hope people enjoy it. And of course, like I do hope that it helps with the income, but that's not necessarily the reason why I'm doing it. It's not my thought process behind it. Like, let me hurry up and put this out so I can get some more money. It's just,
Yes.
like I have this book, this idea came to me. I love it. I'm enjoying the process of it. We'll put it out into the world and we'll see what happens. I mean, yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. And that's when things do pick up and take off, is when you did it for the pure joy of it. And then other people
Hopefully,
can
yeah.
feel that when they receive your work. I know for
Mhm.
me, anything that's ever worked in my business is because I just did it for fun.
Yeah.
When anytime I've overthought about a certain offer or process or this, it's never worked. It's felt complicated and weird,
Yes.
and people can tell, you know, and I
People
can
can
tell.
tell.
Yeah, so I love that. It's like, yeah, you're not attached to the outcome, and because of the lifestyle that you've built for yourself, you kind of don't have to be attached to the outcome and put a bunch of pressure on the outcome, which is a beautiful way to create, because it's so
Yes.
hard to create when you have all this unnecessary stress and pressure on this
It's like,
project has to do exactly this
yes.
thing, right?
It's impossible. And I've
Yeah.
had stints where I couldn't create and I couldn't write because I was like, that second vampire book was so difficult for me because I was putting all that pressure on myself. Like, oh, I have to make people happy and make it as good as the first book. And like, what if they don't read it? And da 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 da. And I need to make 15K a month like this other author. And the whole
Yeah.
process, it's like I didn't enjoy the process. And so now that book is like, it's out there. People tell me that they enjoy it, like it's doing its thing.
Yeah.
But it was just a valuable lesson to me. And like, don't do that to yourself again, Karla, because what good did it do? you know?
Right. Right. And so, I mean, obviously, you made a lot of logistical changes when you changed your lifestyle to kind of the nomad life. I'm curious about the mindset shifts that you've had to have, maybe your relationship with work and with money. How has that changed now to what you used to, do, or how you used to feel about it?
That's an excellent question. It definitely has changed a lot. My relationship with work is it's interesting because I will sit and work on a story for I don't know 6 hours or so, but I'm enjoying myself, and I
Yeah.
call it work. But I'm like, I need another name for this almost,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And early on, you go through this process. This is a bit deep, but it's like you go through this process where you feel guilty. Like I would set my alarm clock and like wake up at 7, and I try to like structure my day. Like, okay, you wake up at 7 and then like you have your breakfast and then you go for a walk and then you come back and you write for 6 hours and then da 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 da. because you
Yeah.
feel like this is what you kind of been trained to do when you have a 9 to 5 job. Like you have this very structured, and I would hold myself to that for a long time. But like I finally, like I want to say earlier this year, like I stopped setting my alarm and it was like, is it
Yeah.
okay?
Gonna get in trouble.
Like self surveillance. Is it okay if I wake up at 9? I don't know. But like allowing myself to get up at 9 and like have a cup of tea and then go for a walk. And maybe I don't start writing until 1 o'clock. Maybe I write from 1 to 6 p.m. And then
Right.
some days maybe I only write for an hour, but like I run a bunch of errands all day. It's been this interesting, like again, like deprogramming myself from what you have been taught basically by society and like corporate jobs and things like that. And
Right.
really leaning into, well, what do I actually just want to do? you
Yes.
know? And then the
Yeah.
money piece is huge because that's the hardest thing, deprogramming myself from the money thing. Um, because it goes back to like comparing myself to that author that was making like 10 15K a month.
Right.
And you see authors who are like hustling on TikTok and they've got like 60,000 followers. And you come across those authors and you're like, oh, like maybe I should be hustling.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, oh, but I don't want to hustle. so,
I feel the
so
exact same way. Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it exhausts me. Like even Instagram, it exhausts me. And it's just like the colors and the sounds and the flashes. And it is counteractive to the concentration and focus that I need to actually write.
Right.
So it's like
Right.
me trying to lean into that for the sake of money. It counteracts me being able to focus and write quality, hopefully quality stories. So yeah, I've just had to come to terms with like, okay, you have to be content with what you have and what you're doing and what it brings. And not necessarily thinking, I just need more money. What do I have to do to get more money? More. Like I really want to unravel the center of my life being like, how much money do I make? How much money am I going to get? I don't
Right.
want that to be the center of my life, but it's hard because it's all around us, right? All the
Yes. Oh my gosh. And it's so
hustle, make
easy.
money.
Yeah, it's easy to get lost into it too. I'm so
Mhm,
guilty of that. This past year, I'd made the most money I've ever made, and this
mhm.
past year, I've also been the most depressed I've ever been. And I'm like,
See?
what is going on? And I
Yeah.
know that just being in the entrepreneurial space, these messages can seep in that I'm not doing enough and all this stuff. And I've actually just kind of shifted gears in a very big way the last few months. I don't give a shit how much money I make this year. I just have to do what feels right. And
Yes.
I found myself getting wrapped up in that. And I'm like, this does not feel good. It's like, yeah, we're in this weird matrix of just making money. And can we just step away for a
Mhm.
second? And like what you've done, it's like you've been able to do things very joyfully, and you don't have to make $1 bazillion a month to like
Mhm.
live in that peaceful place.
You
Um,
don't.
if you could go back in time to, let's say, like your 18-year-old self or something,
Mhm.
and tell yourself a few things about your career path and what to expect, what would you tell yourself? Like, look, if you just remember this one thing or these few things, you're going to be just fine.
I would tell myself that it's okay to experiment and it's okay to have a different and alternative life path than what is being told to you. Because I
Yeah.
think I beat myself up about it for a really long time. I mean, it started when I went to college for, corporate PR, like media relations, corporate communications. And I was on that path, like I did it. That's the expected path. Like I went to college, I had the right internships, I got the right jobs. And then I got into it and I just was like, oh, this is so boring. It's so dry. I'm just working so much. Like, what for? Who am I helping? There
Yeah.
was nothing creative or interesting about it. And so, like, moving to Japan, and then, like, I came back home, and there's like some weird dips in my story too. It wasn't just all travels. Like, I was a substitute teacher for like a good year or so, and I'd make like $600 in a month sometimes. But all the while, it's like I was beating myself up because I had gotten off that corporate path and my friends had not. So I was comparing again, like comparison
Yes. Thief of joy, as they
is a
say. Yes.
big,
Yes.
six figures and they had houses and they were buying condos and they looked so stable and again like they were following that path. But me getting off of it's like I was freer, I was happier, but it was still rough because I was beating myself up so much. I think if I could go back and tell myself like, "Hey, Karla, don't beat yourself up for taking an alternative path. It's okay. Like you're a human. You're allowed to experiment. You're allowed to try different things. You don't have to pick just one thing and stick to it." That's a lie.
Yes, exactly. And it's like we don't tell little kids to do that. Like, hey, you got to pick one toy
Don't.
to play with for the rest of your life. Just do it.
Insane. Like I wanted to be an engineer when I was 15. Like science, no thank
Wow.
you.
When you think about the next 5, 10, 15 years, whatever of your career, do you, in this moment, do you feel like I want to be doing this thing for a while? Or do you feel like yourself getting any itches around other things?
For now, this is what I would like to do. I'm
Yeah.
enjoying it greatly. Um, again, like we don't know what the future holds. And something interesting that I don't even know about could come into my sphere and maybe I take interest in it. You just don't know, right?
Right, right.
But for now, yes, like I'm enjoying what I do and I have all these ideas, I have all these stories and these characters in my head and I want to create more beautiful books that are kind of like my avant-garde art pieces, my weird art pieces. I want to get those out and I want to keep blessing people with my kooky stories.
Yes, I love it. I hope you do. That's another thing I got to ask you is, as a creative, I mean, we're just overwhelmed with ideas. I'm sure that you are too, like you just nonstop, like you said, for characters and books and all of that.
Mhm.
How the heck do you organize that with yourself? How do you keep yourself grounded and like, okay, no, I'm just gonna, these are gonna go in this book that I'm working on. The rest of you are gonna have to wait.
That's how it is. I need you guys to wait. Just sit over here.
Yes.
I will get to you later. I am a big, I'm a visual person and I need to write things down. So sometimes if there's a lot of stuff coming at me, I will sit. I have like a trusty notebook always, and I will organize things in a notebook. I also have a whiteboard that I will write and organize my ideas on. I also have a life coach, Shelby. It's fantastic. She will help me organize like what I need to do. And like, sometimes things you kind of have to feel the mood. Like for me right now, I'm putting out another set of vampire books because they came to me, they came to my mind, but I also know that people want more vampire books from me.
Yeah.
But I also have like this idea about like I call it like my queer Star Trek story. And I have it written. It's
Fabulous.
written. But I want to do a more splashy kind of publishing for it. I want it to be hard. I've never produced a hardcover book on my own, so I want to produce a hardcover book and like give it the launch that it deserves. So it's
Yeah.
like that's something where I need to kind of wait where my income is higher. So like you kind of prioritize things based on like, well, it makes more sense for me to do this first. And I have the idea, like I don't want to push myself to do something, but yeah, the vampire idea was in my head. Like I love it. It's like, okay, well then we'll do the vampires first because you know how to do that. People expect that. Let's just go for it. And then the queer Star Trek will be a little bit different, a little bit maybe risky, maybe not. But yeah, we'll do it later down the line when it can have the launch that it deserves. So you're prioritizing.
So exciting, like, doing the vampire thing and then switching over to a Star Trek-esque
I
series.
know.
How will
I'm such a
people
Trekkie.
react? I love it. I love it. I think it's so important for people to remember those that sometimes those external factors can help you prioritize. Like the fact that that you want to have a specific cover and launch
Yes,
for that series, it helps you prioritize the vampire stuff now.
yes.
And I think that's an example of when external factors can be very helpful instead of
Mhm.
discouraging, because sometimes an external factor can make you feel like you're comparing yourself or you're not doing enough.
Right.
But sometimes it can actually be a really great tool for your internal process. So thank you for
Agreed.
sharing that.
Yeah.
What are your go-to self-care practices, especially as your environment changes, like as you travel and all that good stuff?
I am a big walker. I walk for at least an hour to an hour and a half, 2 hours every day.
Nice.
Not even like I don't jog. I tell people running is for emergencies. I don't jog.
I'm the same way. I love walking. Hate running with a
I hate
passion.
running. Like
You'll
I'm not
never
gonna
catch me
run
running. Yeah,
unless it's an
never.
emergency. Yeah, I just like to go for a walk. Usually I'll listen to an audiobook or something. That's like a big thing for me. It's just being able to be outside and just I'm a bit of like a nature guru. Like I want to like, I have an app
Yeah.
that like tracks bird songs and tell me what birds are singing.
No way. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. What app is this?
It's called Merlin.
I just got really excited about that.
You will press record and it'll record the sounds and it'll tell you which birds are nearby. It's really neat.
Oh, that is
So I
so
do
cool.
that and I also do yoga. Like I like yoga every night before bed. I like to stretch and just kind of like be quiet, like just be quiet, quiet your mind, like just sit still. I don't do any, it's not super deep. I just like to stretch myself and you kind of are like one with your body. I talk to my friends a lot. For me, my friends are a bit like I apologize to them sometimes like you guys are like my therapist. I 100% support therapy, but like sometimes my friends are my therapist.
Right.
So I talk to them. And they
I love
also
it.
help keep me grounded and centered. I mean, like wonderful people in my life. So
Yeah. What has this lifestyle given to you that you know for a fact your old lifestyle would not have? I know you've traveled and seen places, but what kind of experiences are you having that you know are unique to this kind of nomadic lifestyle that you've chosen?
I think I feel like I have a more malleable sense of just like life and being flexible with life and taking things as they come and just trying not to get so worked up about things. It really has taught me a kind of flexibility and ease that I didn't have when I was working a 9 to 5 job. I had this certain idea of like what I was supposed to be doing and like how I was supposed to be living life. But now that those things are like kind of stripped away, it's interesting to discover, oh, actually, you don't have to do things that way, or you don't need to, do A, B, and C. And I feel like that has been invaluable to me, just being able to, yeah, I don't know, open my mind. Does it make sense?
Oh, that totally makes sense. Yeah, you kind of just have to like go with the flow and be okay with all the uncertainty. I know for me, a big thing that my day job that I did not like gave me, or the one that I left before doing my own thing,
Mhm.
I had a lot of certainty. I knew what
Yeah.
my day was going to look like. I knew how much money
Mhm.
I was bringing in. And that did provide a sense of comfort. Of course,
It
I was
does.
absolutely miserable, but it's like, yeah, you really have to be comfortable with not knowing. Woo,
And
it's
it's
tough
hard.
sometimes. Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
hard because sometimes I do envy, like that stability. It's like the grass is always greener. Like sometimes I think
Right.
like, oh, I just want to be able to have stability like in this creative lifestyle. It's like,
Yeah.
well, I don't know. I don't know why it's not always a trade-off. Some people are able to achieve it, but it's just a really messy thing. It's like there are people who are creatives who make a lot of money and they have the stability, but they're also miserable because, like maybe it's not fun for them anymore. And I don't want
Mhm.
that to happen to me. I don't want to get to that place. Like I
Yeah.
want to protect this space.
I would love to hear your kind of words of wisdom to any writer right now who feels like they are having a hard time bringing their idea to fruition, or even just taking the first step to look into the publishing process, whatever that might be. What would you like to say to that person who doesn't feel like they believe in themselves to bring something like this to life?
I would say if it's in you, if it's in your gut, and if it's in your instinct, to trust in that. Like maybe
Yeah.
you don't have validate. I was very fortunate to have validators on the outside, but even if you don't, if it's in you and if it's something that you feel strongly about, then pursue it. Like just try. It doesn't hurt to just try. Take a bite, take a step, listen to what your gut is telling you, and just try. It doesn't hurt. It'll be okay.
Sometimes we're just even afraid to try. And like we
Hmm.
we got to allow ourselves to try shit, you know?
Allow yourself to
Um
try and listen to your gut. Like listen to that instinct that's telling you, like, if you have an
yeah,
idea, put it out there. It's in there, it's
exactly.
in you for a reason.
Exactly. Well, is there anything that we did not talk about today that you think is important for people to know around any of the topics that we've covered? And then, of course, where can people find you, your work, all that good stuff?
Oh, I think about everything. Um, you can find me on Instagram sometimes. I am on Instagram.
Not on TikTok, though. Don't be
Not
searching.
on TikTok. I can't handle kudos to everybody who can handle TikTok, but mentally I cannot handle it. I am at Karla Nikole Publishing on Instagram. And yeah, I'm about to do some fun giveaway stuff for the month of July. So I'll
Ooh,
be there talking to people, hanging out. We have a really nice community on Instagram. That's one thing is it's like social media is hard for me, but I have built a really warm and friendly community on Instagram. So we
nice.
have fun.
Good. Fabulous. Well, thank you so much. This was a freaking blast talking with you. And
You
I just
too.
look at this incredible niche that you found for yourself, right? Like, come on. Sometimes the best opportunities are the ones that are not mainstream. They're the ones that
Yes,
you really create for yourself out of your own
exactly.
imagination. Have a lovely rest of the day. I'll be chatting with you
You.
soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Delaney.
All right, everybody. Hope you got as much out of learning more about Karla's story as I did. I absolutely loved chatting with her. Go follow her and check out her work. And just wrapping up with a quick check in and Apple Podcast review of the episode. I feel like I haven't given you many fun updates about my personal life in a while in the outro. So I recently went on a little girls' trip with two of my closest friends, and it was just so nice. We only drove about an hour away. We stayed in an Airbnb and just had so many great chats. We walked along the beach. We laughed our asses off in a hot tub for way too long, had delicious food together, went to a cool outdoor bookstore. It was just a little getaway that we all just very much needed. And on the trip, we decided to make this an annual thing for us. It was one of those moments where this was pretty simple to plan. Like it was easy to make this a priority. It was affordable because, we're all splitting expenses. So we just decided that we're going to do this every year. So I just wanted to share this because maybe there's something that you've been putting off that you want to do, or something that you want to plan, or maybe something that you've done recently that you would like to make a tradition with your friends and family. And, just go do it. It can be simple. And then for the Apple Podcast review, this is from Kate with a little smiley face. And it says, just do it. Oh my gosh, we were just talking about just do it. I promise I did not look at this before I shared that update. So Kate says, just do it. If you're reading the reviews to see if you want to start listening, I'm going to save you some time and tell you that you should listen. Do it. Kate, thank you so much. Really appreciate your review. So I guess from myself and from Kate, just go do it. Go do the thing that you've been wanting to do and give it a little try. So if you want to take a moment to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, I will take a moment to read it on the next episode and to say hello. All right. Thanks, everyone. I will chat with you soon. Thank you for tuning in to Self-Helpless. You can find our brand new merch, Patreon community, and other fun goodies at selfhelplesspodcast.com. We'd be thrilled if you left an Apple Podcast review, shared this episode with a friend, or post about it on Instagram and tag us at Self-Helpless Podcast so we can repost you and say hi. As an independently produced show, we sincerely appreciate your support. Thanks, everybody.